Good morning. Today we're going to demonstrate what an EAS fault actually feels like, how it presents itself. You'd be amazed at when I open myself up to questions and these videos and these products that I make. I get dozens of questions I never expected. And one of them is, what is an EAS fault? So right now we have a video of me driving along. Hopefully you can see a little bit of the horizon of the road in front of me. And the point of this video is to demonstrate the drastic change in ride quality. And because it's one thing for me to show you the difference in height, you know, that when this is my normal ride height and this is the height that I get to ride around in when I'm in fault mode. But it's quite another thing to show you actually what it feels like, in some way, what it feels like to drive on an EAS fault. So I'm going to go ahead and pull over here, and I'm going to trigger an EAS fault. I have a module I've programmed to trigger an EAS fault, and then I'll show you the difference in ride quality. Okay, I've gone ahead and triggered the EAS fault. You can hear it, and this is going to be fairly unpleasant. I'm going to take my foot off the brake, and you'll see the car lowering to the bump stops. And in just a second, when it's finished lowering, we're going to head off. And as you can tell from my voice, I'm not terribly excited about this because it's really a mess. It's painful. To drive around in an EAS fault is not a pleasant thing. Here we go. Oh yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Bounce, bounce, bounce. We're only going 25 miles an hour. You could really see how this would be a nightmare at highway speeds. 25 miles an hour. Woo! And you can also hear my tires scraping. I've got slightly larger tires, so I'd be in a real mess if I got stuck. My only option would be to tow home. So I've just about had enough of this. You can probably see how much we're shaking. And I'm going to pull over and clear the fault with my EAS buddy box. Oh, God. Son of a... Yeah, I've had enough of that. Alright, I'm going to clear the fault with the EAS buddy box. Okay, well, I've gone ahead and cleared the fault. My suspension's just about risen back up to normal ride height. Like I said, I used the EAS buddy box for exactly what it was designed for. We had a fault while driving, pulled over to the side of the road, safely pulled over to the side of the road, inspected the situation, plugged in the EAS buddy box, and the fault is cleared. See, now I have the ability to drive on a suspension that has air pressure and get myself to a Land Rover technician or a Land Rover dealership and have the fault inspected and cleared and properly fixed once and for all. But see, this allows me to get back on the road in a safe and controlled fashion. And as you can see, normal suspension, pleasant, soft, manageable. See, now I can get myself back to civilization, get myself to a trained technician, and I won't have any more problems. Thanks for watching.
So here we have a very simple illustration of the Range Rover suspension setup. Here's the rear axle of the vehicle. Here are the air springs. And here are the steel pads that the bump stops rest on when you're in EAS fault. And I'm showing you this because I want to illustrate further why the ride is so uncomfortable when you're in EAS fault mode. Now if we turn on the chassis view here, we see that the chassis floats above the axle separated by the air springs. And when you go into EAS fault mode, the air springs are completely deflated and the axle comes in contact with the frame through a series of bump stops. And these bump stops sit right next to each one of the air springs, and when you're in the fault mode they actually contact the axle. Now if we switch to a different view here, In this view, we've zoomed in underneath the chassis, and here you can see the air spring, the axle, the frame, and this is the bump stop. This red disc of polyurethane is the bump stop, and when you're in fault mode, this is the only suspension component that is active. This bump stop is in contact with this steel pad down here on the axle. This bump stop actually becomes extremely compressed. You have roughly a 5,800 pound vehicle, almost a 3-ton vehicle, and all that weight, the only thing that's supporting all that weight and separating all that weight from you and the road is just this one small polyurethane bump stop. The air spring is completely deflated when you're in EAS fault mode, and that means all the weight of the vehicle is on these polyurethane bump stops. Now, a couple things. That's why the ride is so uncomfortable. So this is the cause. And when you're in EAS fault mode, this is your only suspension, and that's why it's so miserable and just an awful ride experience.